Oh, no cartoon this time? Damn. To be fair, it is the same case technically. So, the time's finally come. Today, we unravel everything. I'll be counting on your support more than ever today, Mr. Sato. Ah, Mr. Sato. Ah! What? Fucking relax, dude. What's the matter? Well, I mean... nothing. I was just saying I'll be relying on your support today, but... I'm so sorry. Of course, I know I can be rather incompetent at times, but... I shan't let you down. Would you mind helping me to my feet, then? Of course, I'm really very sorry. Susato-san isn't her usual self at all. But that's hardly surprising, I suppose. She's just found out that her father is the partner of a world-famous detective, not to mention... Ah, good morning, sir. Lord Van Zeeks. Thank you for all your efforts yesterday. What? Did I just hear that correctly? What? Oh, no, nothing. Just, I hope we can clear things up today. I really can't make this man out. His face says, I hate you, but his words are almost jovial today. In fact, he hasn't been very Reaper-like at all since this all began yesterday. Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper, Mr. Naruhodo. Good point. The Reaper? I suppose, in hindsight, I shouldn't have allowed that misconception to go unchallenged. Yeah? It was my tacit acceptance of that pseudonym. My failure to stop the Reaper becoming more than a mere legend that led to all of this. But you're not to blame for that, Van Zeeks. It's only because more serious crimes happened in the... It's only because serious crimes in the capital dropped off so sharply when the public started calling you that. What is wrong with me? That's why you didn't say anything, isn't it? To be frank, I'm not sure that was the sole reason. What do you mean? There was a rumor at the time that the Reaper was really the ghost of my late brother. That having been slain by that evil killer, Clint's restless spirit returned as some sort of demigod, to wield a deadly blade of justice where I, by dint of law, could not. So yes, we've heard that story too. Amazing, he actually remembered something that was said to him in the past. When I lost him. I felt as though I'd lost my guiding light. I didn't know where to go or what to do. And so, in some small way, I wonder if perhaps those rumors made me feel his absence a little less keenly. Even if I knew it was just an illusion, just some nonsense conjured up by the over-imaginative public. He was obviously extremely important to you. Lord Clint Van Zeeks. Well, what's important now is uncovering the truth. That's all that matters. I know you didn't take anyone's life. And I intend to prove that beyond a shadow of a doubt in court today. I never thought I'd say this, but I can see it in your eyes. That burning desire to cut through all the lies and deception. I can't deny it any longer. You are a lawyer of absolute integrity. Thank you. I mean, yeah, in the very first trial, we started trying to get our own client arrested. Now tell me, why do I detect the scent of expensive tea leaves in the air? Oh, Iris, when did you get here? Oh. I brought you one of my special blends. In the cup? Hurley loves it. He says it helps him to clear his head. I thank you. Oh, heh. That's surely the first and last time I'll ever see a sight like this. You seem different today, Iris. Oh? Sort of subdued, I suppose. I am not. What happened yesterday is obviously still playing on her mind a lot. Strange that. She's clearly very troubled about having stolen that autopsy report from Sive's laboratory. Alright then. Good luck to you both. I have to make a move now. Oh, you're not staying? It's a closed trial, dude. I thought you'd want to watch. It's a closed trial. Well, I'd like to cheer you on, obviously. But I've got lots to get ready. Get ready? For what? Oh, yes. Would you take this? Isn't that one of the little dolls that's usually dangling from your knapsack? Yes, it's a lucky charm, a little Hurley that I made once. Why is he a rabbit? And why is he that color? And why's he got a feather coming out of his hat? It looks more like a Harley to me. If for some reason you completely run out of options in the trial today, then just pull this little Hurley's ears as hard as you possibly can. What fucking Deus Ex Machina are you giving to me? What? Pull his ears? That's right, it's a way to bring good luck. I think you might need it. No fucking way. What the fuck is this gonna do? I mean, I'm gonna examine it. What if it was like, oh, pull the ears and now you can't use the crucial piece of evidence, so you fucking died. What a charming little rabbit version of Sholmes. Do you suppose this is how Iris sees him? Are you alright now, Hodo? Your eyes are veritably boring into the poor doll's eyes. Oh, sorry. I was just wondering. What do you suppose would happen if I were to tug its ears with all my might now? I'm sure we'll find out when the time is right. To become a proper gentleman, you must learn stoic patience. But I want to know. So do I, believe me. But I have faith it'll pay off in the end somehow. You think what we'll need is luck? I just sneaked a peek inside the courtroom, and it seemed very different to normal. Yes, it would seem that a certain someone has decided to pull out all the stops. What does that mean? Strongheart in there, waiting for us. Final boss. What about Sholmes, Iris? I don't know. He was out all night and he hadn't come home by the time I left this morning. Oh, I see. Was Professor Mikotoba out all night long too, do you think, Mrs. Sato? Yes, it would seem so. I telegrammed the hotel this morning, and apparently they didn't come back to their rooms last night. They? Father and Judge Jigoku, I mean. Oh, God. I mean, Sholmes obviously isn't dead, but I've been, like, concerned about those two for a while. Judge Jigoku, too. That's right. Nobody appears to have seen either of them since yesterday. Counsel for the defense. Court's about to be in session. Get inside. Good luck then, Runo. Good luck, Susie. Yes. Thanks, Iris. And you, Mr. Reaper. I hope it goes well. Once again, I thank you for the delicious tea. It was very soothing. Oh, I'm so glad. How delightful. We must go inside now, Von Zeeks. Lord Von Zeeks has always been the formidable prosecutor I've had to lock horns with in court. But not today. Today I battle with another in pursuit of the truth. My best friend, Kazuma Asogi, who I trust more than anyone else. Now I understand what it was that drew me here to Britain all these months ago. Now I know exactly what destiny had in store for me. It's all been leading up to this one day, to this one trial, to this one final reckoning. It feels even more oppressive here than it did yesterday. There are cold stares piercing me like knives from all sides. Ah! Mr. Naruhodo, look! Oh no! Lord Strongheart! This is worse than I imagined. Kazuma must have known beforehand. The ramifications of this trial now extend far beyond the murder of one Scotland Yard inspector. In fact, events have come to life that threaten to rock the very foundation of our country's legal system. The escape of a condemned criminal on the night of his execution, the subsequent unlawful shooting of the man, and the revelation that prison staff must have been complicit in the jailbreak. Britain is currently hosting influential members of the judiciary from countries all around the world. It is imperative that we uncover the truth in these proceedings to avoid international embarrassment. I have bad news for you. By royal decree, this will continue to be a closed trial. And one over which I, male Strongheart, exercise total and unequivocal authority. How are we gonna get him busted when he's the judge? The 6 juror flames. As was the case in yesterday's proceedings, those here present in the public gallery are distinguished members of our judiciary assembled to bear witness to a fair judicial process. In other words, a collection of your acolytes, Lord Strongheart. On a personal note, I find this most distressing, Lord Van Zieks. You are a prosecutor of exceptional talent. Much like your brother, Clint, in fact. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court to be in session. For the trial of Barak von Zieks, who officially stands accused of murder. Counsels for the prosecution and defense, are you in full readiness to proceed? The defense is ready, my lord. As is the prosecution. Yesterday's proceedings brought to light a shocking and disturbing fact. There was a side to the victim, Inspector Tobias Gregson, that was unknown to his superiors at Scotland Yard. Yes, he was carrying out operations in secret which Scotland Yard knew nothing about. And in those clandestine operations, he had an accomplice. Mr. Daily Vigil would be given the inspector's identification and present himself around the capital in order to establish credible alibis for Gregson. In that way, Gregson appeared to be carrying out his regular Scotland Yard work, when in fact he wasn't. You know, I only just thought about this. Why did he need an alibi if he's not the dude that actually does the killing? At the end of yesterday's session, Mr. Vigil, who had been suffering from amnesia, regained his memory. It would appear he buried his memories of the time deep inside himself as a means of self-preservation. Because whilst he was engaged as chief warder at Barclay Prison, he abetted the convict's escape. Mr. Vigil is currently recuperating at St. Sinners. He's recovered enough to give a single signed statement about his movements on the day prior to the incident. He's formally admitted to posing as Gregson while investigating the Red-Headed League. Which brings us to the crucial issue of the victim's time of death. The defense yesterday proposed the suggestion that the victim may have been killed one day earlier. This was based largely on the discovery that the victim's pocket watch had not been wound. The prosecution has something to report on that subject, my lord. Really? Go ahead, prosecutor. I met once again with the coroner yesterday to discuss the issue. She confirmed that the defense's suggestion could not be ruled out. It's entirely possible that Inspector Gregson was killed on October 31st, the day before his body was discovered. I have here an updated autopsy report that includes the amended details. By official opinion of the investigation team. But the official opinion of the investigation team was made clear yesterday, that the time of death was 5 p.m. on the 1st of November. There are indications of an attempt to disguise the real time of death, however. It seems the natural decaying process of the victim's body may have been slowed by keeping it chilled. That's out of the question. There are no refrigerator devices in that part of London large enough to accommodate a human corpse. My lord, this is more than just conjecture. There's evidence to support the idea. We must investigate it thoroughly. Very well. The court will accept the new report as evidence. However, if this updated report is deemed to be accurate, it would give renewed significance to the movements of the victim on the day before the Frenso Street incident. It would, yes, especially since on that day, Inspector Gregson was using Vigil to cover up his real movements. It's conceivable that he was killed in the course of his secret activities. Do I sense that the prosecution has some information regarding those activities? Scotland Yard put an enormous effort into investigating that precise matter yesterday. I think we should begin by presenting the results of that investigation work. So the prosecution calls its first witness now. State your name and occupation for the court. Inspector Gina Lestrade reporting. Representative of Scotland Yard. A self-conferred rank, but never mind. Gina. What's your problem, Oda? What's with that, Gina? Again, look, eh? Ah. The boss meant the world to me. He's done more for me than anyone else ever did. Oh, Inspector Gregson, you mean? He got me out the back slums of the East End and took me under his wing. Taught me that life can have a purpose. Oh, fucking hell. Excuse me. So that's why I'm the best person to be standing here speaking for him. Oh, Gina. Right. All out of the goodness of Gregson's heart. Not at all that he had his right arm twisted by Sholmes, no. What's relevant to these proceedings is that the outcome of Scotland Yard's investigation yesterday has revealed that the victim was carrying out some assignment the police knew nothing about. Very troubling. That face, Lord Strongheart knew. So, Inspector Lestrade, let's hear exactly what it says in that report. Coming right up, sir. Or detectives are supposed to follow orders and investigate what they're told. But a little search of the boss's office turned up a notebook that had a load of secret meetings in it. According to that, the boss was looking into some smuggled goods dealings that day. Looks like it was a big job and all, but the coppers weren't onto it yet. What matters most is there's a witness what saw the Reaper at the place too. So now we're saying the Reaper was somewhere completely different? Smuggled goods. I don't know, do I? I'm just telling you what was written in the book. Tobacco, tea, spices, medicines, goods of all sorts flow into London by illegal channels across the globe. It's well known that they're disposed of at regular black markets that take place in the capital. But the police are rarely able to locate them in time. So Inspector Gregson was investigating one of those black markets. It's been suggested that high-ranking government officials may be involved in black market activity. No doubt Gregson was trying to avoid details of his investigations being leaked to the involved parties. That would explain why he was operating on his own authority without the Yard's knowledge. And do we know where the dealings were taking place? In a particular room of a certain exclusive London gentlemen's club. And on the day in question, the accused is known to have been there. That's the conclusion of Scotland Yard's investigation work. That can't be. We haven't heard anything about this. Members of the club have testified to it. There's no question. The accused, Barak von Zeeks, was present. That would be very significant testimony, then. Oh my, but Lord Van Zieks has made no mention of this. In short, Lord Van Zieks had ample opportunity to murder the victim. Very well, then. Counsel for the defense, begin your cross-examination. Alright. Let's get pressing. So, you follow orders, do you, Gina? Nah, not me. I'm above all that, see? Oh. The boss always had special orders for me. Grab us some fish and chips, or go and give Toby his grub. That kind of thing. So, errands more than orders. This detective is still an apprentice, after all. Yeah, well, this apprentice ain't one to sit around and wait to be told what to do, even by the boss. That's why I've been doing my own investigations into what happened. I didn't find much at first. But a little search of the boss's notebook. So you went through Inspector Gregson's things? Yup, as part of the independent Lestrade investigation. I'm sure your superiors would be delighted that you're taking the initiative. You know what, we never actually read that document. I imagine it just has the new time of death estimate on it, but, you know. Between May 31st... Well, now we're saying it wasn't October 1st? Let's see, recent ink stains. Oh, I forgot about the ink stains. Wait, this is the wrong one. This is the wrong fucking one. I am a stupid fucking idiot. Okay. Indeterminate. Evidence suggests measures may have been taken to disguise time of death. That's it? Okay. So I snuck into his office when no one else was about. Of course, if anyone at the yard had seen me going in there, they'd have turned me straight out on the street. This is sounding less and less like an investigation and more like something else. The prosecution understands that it was this very detective who discovered the notebook. You got that right. Nothing gets past Inspector Lestrade and her trusty assistant, Chief Inspector Toby. We found it hidden in one of his desk drawers and had a false bottom. That's impressive, is it? So I went to the yard myself, where no one could find me, so I could have a butcher's at what was written in it. Because if anyone at the yard found me out, they'd have turfed me out onto the street. Ah, ha. I've given it in now, though, ain't I? And if it weren't for me, it never would have been found. Do you have any idea where those dealings were taking place? Yup. It was all in the boss's notes. Let's see. As I already said, the illegal dealings were due to take place at a gentleman's club. Yes, I remember, but I was hoping to find out the name. That won't be necessary. What? It's conceivable that the club might be used again by the smugglers in the future. Therefore, the prosecution has been asked not to reveal the name in these proceedings. I don't know what all the fuss is about, but it's right here. All I gotta do is read it. And I could too. I've got this reading game buttoned up now. Can't I show you what I can do? Come on, what's the harm? The judge hasn't signaled his objection yet. I could try and find out. Go for it! This is a closed court. The proceedings are confidential. There shouldn't be any possibility of the information being leaked. As I explained, there is some possibility of politicians being involved in this affair. The prosecution is rightfully exercising caution, I imagine. No, my lord. The prosecution has no objection. Cosmo? There's no question that Inspector Gregson was looking into these black market dealings. However, it's not been established that he was on that particular trail on the day in question. If the defense requires to know the club's name, the prosecution has no intention of being obstructive. He's not happy.
Right then. I get to show off my reading skills. Apparently, smuggled goods deals was going to happen at a gentleman's club called the Grows.
We haven't seen that name before, I don't think. The Grows? What sort of club is that? Well, gentleman's club means one specific thing, usually.
I ain't got the foggiest. Clubs ain't my thing, exactly. But I am kinda curious.
They're not places for a foreign student like you would be readily admitted. Have you looked in the mirror?
I'll tell you what. Me and Chief Inspector Toby could go in undercover.
Could you, though?
I could pick out a few good marks and see what else I could find while I was in there.
I really don't think you should go picking out anything. Anyway, that's where these black market dealings were going to take place?
Yep, it's got to be. That's what the lower ranking detectives at the yard reckon.
Says the even lower ranking one. We just have a we don't have anything that has the Grows written on it, right? Well, that's not going to have Grows written on it, is it? Why am I looking at the autopsy report? Why would that have Grows on it? Fuck it, I'm not going to worry about it until I've looked at everything else. So, how had Inspector Gregson come to find out about it in that case?
That's the question, ain't it? But I'm just an apprentice, so...
And why didn't he inform Scotland Yard of his findings?
Yeah, that's what I was asking myself, 'cause, you know, I'm just an apprentice.
When it suits you.
Anyway, point is, something went on at that club, no question.
You can't say for certain, though, surely.
Witness saw the Reaper.
Lord Van Zeeks was at the club. He was. Detectives who visited the club yesterday to make inquiries have confirmed it. Several members report having seen the accused being admitted to the room in question as a guest. It looks like there's no disputing that he was there then. Well, unless there was another disguise, we've already seen one. Well, we do know Van Zeeks was investigating Gregson, don't we? Perhaps he'd already discovered the inspector's secret notebook, which led him to the club? Maybe. Presumably then there are also eyewitnesses who can testify Gregson was there? None have identified at this time, no. So that all-important victim wasn't seen at this mysterious club.
Oi, why aren't you asking Inspector Lestrade here, eh?
So that's all I've got to work with. Gina's not holding back with that ice-cold stare. I really don't know what to make of all this. Van Zeeks told us he was investigating the Inspector Gregson, but he never once mentioned that he met the inspector the day before. Presumably he would have done if he actually did. You don't think Van Zeeks could be lying to us, do you? No, that's not the only way to explain this. If everything Van Zeeks told us is true, there must be a mistake in this testimony. You mean there are details we've yet to uncover? Exactly. Well, obviously. So it seems like we have to focus on the name. Because right now, apparently it seems like we're not going to be able to dispute Van Zeeks was there. But he didn't see Gregson, it looks like. And this is this was a fucking Steam ticket. Steam ship ticket. What was it called? It was. Ah, we found it. Fucking astounding. Oh my god. Oh, I was like, I'll check it just in case. Fucking got it. I've read about these clubs that exist here in Britain.
As I understand it, they're places where well-to-do gentlemen socialize with friends and colleagues. Don't imagine for a second that a foreign student like you would be admitted. Seriously, is your mirror cracked? Do we know for sure that the contraband dealings were definitely at a club called The Gross? The police are currently looking for evidence, but haven't found anything definitive yet. And I'm sorry to say that they probably won't. What do you mean by that? I mean that the place Inspector Gregson was secretly going to on the 31st may not have been a gentleman's club. You're showing a very irreverent attitude towards our country's police force there, Counsel. If it isn't a gentleman's club, then what was it? A steamship. You think it's a ship? I have evidence to prove it here. Let me see that. This dark-suited man is not in the least bit untrustworthy. No, the other side. Be more specific next time. Ah, this would appear to be a ticket for passage upon a steamship, yes. The SS Gross.
Objection!
So there's a steamship named The Gross that happens to share the name with the club. But I'm afraid to say, there's a flaw in your logic. How? Look at the ticket. Notice the date of arrival in port? The ship arrived at Port Dover on the 1st of November. Ah. The day on which the sound like a gunshot was heard on Frenso Street. In other words, on the day in question here, when the victim was on his clandestine mission, that steamship wasn't yet docked on British shores. That would certainly make an undercover investigation somewhat challenging. The fact that the steamship hadn't reached Britain yet substantiates the defense's assertion the victim was investigating the Gross on the day in question. Then show your evidence for that assertion. Very well. In that case, counsel for the defense, present your evidence to the court now. Evidence that substantiates your claim the victim was investigating the Gross. What is my evidence for this? Oh, it was this, wasn't it? Yes, it's this.
Take that!
What's this? A passport for travel issued to the victim? Dated October 1st. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that just one day before the inspector's body was discovered, there's a distinct possibility he wasn't even in the country. Order! Order. This document is for passage to France. It does appear to have been officially authorized. The day before the Gross arrived at Dover, it docked on the northern coast of France for a night. According to my father, who was on board, at the port of Dunkirk. Dunkirk, France. What could possibly have taken the victim there? I'm impressed, Ryunosuke. I certainly didn't expect you to get your hands on that passport. What? You mean you knew? The prosecution strategy for this trial has been laid down by the Crown Prosecution Office. On the day before the incident, the victim was investigating contraband dealings at a London club. That's the outcome of Scotland Yard's investigation and the line the prosecution has been asked to follow. But personally, I don't agree. I think the prosecution's office is trying to hide something. What? And now that you've expertly disproven their assertion, I intend to reveal what I believe that something to be. What are you playing at, Prosecutor Asogi? A courtroom is a forum for the truth, my lord. Which is why it is my duty to present all the facts, without exception. Let me guess. This was your intention from the outset, wasn't it? The reason Inspector Gregson secretly made his way to the steamship docked in France on the day in question was to carry out a mission for the Reaper. The Reaper? Order! Order! What on earth are you saying, Counsel? The prosecution made an assertion in court yesterday. Inspector Gregson was investigating the identity of the Reaper. When he discovered the location of the man's secret hideout, he was killed. As I'm sure everyone can imagine, by the Reaper's hand. But in reality, the truth is the opposite of that. What? We know it is. What do you mean, what? Inspector Gregson wasn't investigating Reaper at all. He was, in fact, acting for the Reaper. So you're saying the mission he was undertaking was, obviously, an assassination. Barak von Zieks never carried out any of the actual killings. Whenever the Reaper's victims lost their lives, he always had a cast iron alibi. Which tells us that he must have had an accomplice. And you claim that was Inspector Gregson.
What the hell do you think you're saying here? My boss would never have done something like that.
And yet, when you consider all the facts, it all makes perfect sense.
No, it can't be.
We also arrived at the same conclusion, didn't we? That Inspector Gregson was operating as the Reaper. Or part of the Reaper, at least. Even so, there's no way that the person giving him his orders was Lord Van Zieks. No, the true Reaper is somebody else. Oh, I'm pretty sure I know who it was. Barak von Zieks is not the Reaper. A predictable response from someone who's advocating for the man. And even if it's true that Gregson was operating as an agent, the suggestion that he went aboard the SS Gruz on an assassination mission doesn't follow at all. Oh, do you have some reason for doubting the assertion? Absolutely. It's very simple. On the day in question, nobody was killed aboard that steamship. Professor Mikotoba and Judge Jigoku were on that very ship. If someone had been assassinated, I'm certain we would have heard about it. Pfft. What's so funny? You're right, of course. No suspicious deaths were reported on board the ship. But I think perhaps you've missed the point. That's precisely why Inspector Gregson himself lost his life. What? Gregson did board the SS Gruz that night with the intention of dispatching his mark. But his mission ended in failure. Failure? It seems that the defense hasn't yet grasped a very important detail here. What are you talking about? What detail? Inspector Gino Lestrade?
What?
The victim's notebook that you read an excerpt from earlier. That doesn't contain details of secret investigations at all. It describes 10 years of assassination plots to be carried out by the Reaper of the Bailey.
You're lying. Even if all them bludgers what gotten taken out had it coming, the boss weren't the Reaper.
Poor Gina. There's no question that Tobias Gregson was heavily involved in the Reaper's activities. You may just be an apprentice, but if you spent any time at Scotland Yard, you must have heard rumors.
I ain't heard nothing, and I don't believe a word of it.
Then testify again, as a representative of Scotland Yard. Consider it your chance to defend your boss.
Oh, I don't.
I concur. The witness will give a new formal testimony. Miss Lestrade, you will tell the court everything you know about Inspector Gregson's secret notebook. Just one moment, I've suddenly... Hold on. I've become paranoid I don't have enough space, suddenly. Alright, space has been cleared.
Yeah, this notebook does have a lot of space about what the Reaper got up to these years. Names of victims, dates and places and stuff. And the last entry in there was the 31st of October. It said gross for the place on that date, and then the name of the mark. There was a note about him being a criminal what got away from the Reaper in court 10 years ago or something. Oh god, was it Judge Jigoku? But honest, the boss didn't have none of it. He was investigating the Reaper.
Keep personal opinions out of your testimony, witness. We require only established fact here. This must be very hard for her. You can't deny it now, surely, Ryunosuke. What can't I deny? The notebook contained the name of the final mark, and the location where the assassination would take place. That's information the victim could have only known if he was working with the Reaper. We never denied he was working with the Reaper. We're denying who the Reaper is. So, who was to be this final mark? Go ahead, Inspector Lestrade, read the name. The name that's written alongside the entry. It's gonna say Jigoku, isn't it?
Oh, how'd you read this then?
Reading's still not her strong suit.
That ain't the problem, alright, Odo. It's a funny name. It ain't English. It's hard to read.
So it's someone from overseas?
Let me have a bash at it.
Say shit, yep, it was fucking Jigoku.
Yeah, Seishiro. Jigoku. Maybe?
What? No, it can't be. Seishiro Jigoku? But that's Judge Jigoku. Seishiro Jigoku. Certainly not an English name, you're right. But that can't be right. I know Judge Jigoku, and I saw him the day before yesterday here in London. So I know for a fact the man hasn't been assassinated. Yeah, they asserted he failed. As I said, the Reaper failed. Oh. Gregson missed his chance to kill his mark and return to British shores. But the Reaper wouldn't tolerate the mistake. So he killed the inspector. Personally. The Reaper, of course, being the accused, Barak von Zieks. It's an undeniably logical argument. Kazuma, you've planned for the trial to go this way all along, didn't you? Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice whilst I stand accused of murder. Lord Van Zieks, the accused has no right to speak uninvited in court. You will return to the dock. I say nothing of whether or not I'm the Reaper. That's the task of this court to decide. But there is one thing I can say unequivocally. That girl is no detective.
Eh? What? No, that's right. I ain't. I'm an inspector.
Repeating rumors heard around the yard. Reading entries from a notebook of unconfirmed origin. That's not testimony. It's practically a script. No doubt the rest of this trial will go exactly as you've clearly planned. Your hatred of me is understandable. In your mind, I'm sure I am the Reaper, who sent your father to the gallows all those years ago. But you're in danger of becoming a far more sinister Reaper yourself. By attempting to have me condemned with this feeble excuse for a testimony. What did you say? Mr. Naruhodo, this is our chance. My lord, the defense requests the defendant be allowed to speak. He may be privy to important information relating to the testimony just given. Very well. I will make an exception and grant the request. The defendant may remain in the witness stand for the cross-examination. Then allow me to toast the court's impartiality. Don't raise your glass in my direction, sir. Counsel for the defense, begin the cross-examination. Well, we're going to press all the way down if he's just going to be stood there. At once, my lord. Not that we don't usually do that, but you know.
Hold it!
In other words, it shows that Gregson was basically acting as the Reaper.
Not you and all. That ain't the only explanation, is it? He could have been investigating the Reaper in secret, and that notebook said what he found out.
If I may. When originally people began referring to me as the Reaper, I didn't object. I believed the power to intimidate London's criminal classes into compliance with the law to be beneficial. But you carried out your own investigation into the true identity, didn't you? Yes, and those investigating proved conclusive that Gregson was one arm of the Reaper.
One arm? What are you on about?
The Reaper's victims were all extremely shrewd criminals at the top of their game. There's simply no way one person could have taken them on alone. The Reaper is an organization. With you at its head, I had spies at the yard keeping me abreast of Gregson's movements, letting me know when he was elsewhere. So I'd been able to check the most recent entry in this book. I knew the location. You said it was, it said gross. Believing it to be a reference to the Gentleman's Club, I went there on the day in question to investigate. Alone. Ah, so that explains why several members of the club saw you there. But of course, the inspector was not there. Because at the time, he was making his way to the steamship docked on France, as shown by the passport found in the victim's metal trunk. Very well then, back to your testimony about the contents.
Fine.
Is something wrong, Narhoda? You seem a little shocked by something. Oh, no, it's alright.
Names of victims, dates and places and stuff. October 31st.
Names of the victims, dates, places, and stuff? What in particular?
Well, besides the victims' names, this other name kept cropping up.
What was the other name? It's gonna be fucking Shin, isn't it?
It's the one I told you yesterday. The same name written over and over.
You mean Asa Shin?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, fuck. Skip that last part.
She a friend of yours or something?
Were you even listening yesterday? Asa Shin. The assassin.
What? Like a killer, you mean?
Gregson was the tactician, the one who came up with the plan of attack. He investigated the marks thoroughly, finding out when they would be vulnerable and who to use to get to them. But the person actually executing his plan, oh Jesus Christ, was someone else, you're saying. Oh, no. Oh, there we go. If that's true, then the Reaper does indeed start to sound like an organized group of vigilantes. Ah, then perhaps what it said on the passport document. Permission for the applicant and one additional person to travel. Could that person have been? Clearly the assassin, who was meant to take Seishiro Jigoku's life. But she was dead by that point. Gina, can you confirm that against the final entry that listed Gross and Goku? What name was written?
Oh, well, that's the only entry that didn't have a name next to it.
What?
Why are you surprised? We know that she is dead. It just had a question mark or something there, I think.
In other words, Gregson himself didn't know the identity of the assassin in that case. But Gregson was the one making the plans, was he not? Oh, how infuriating. A nameless assassin.
Said Gross.
And you're saying that the mark listed was Seishiro Jigoku?
That's what it said.
Funny name if you ask me. Now that we know this, let me have a look at that picture we have, actually. This is the wrong picture. Does anything look weird about him now that I know that? He had a really big trunk with him. Nothing else exactly stands out as being new knowing this, but he did have a big boy trunk with him. Anyway,
That's what he said. Funny name, if you ask me. And I thought your name was odd.
so pleased to have lost my crown. Mr. Jigoku is the presiding judge of the Japan's Supreme Court of Judicature. I remember the man. He came to our country as a visiting student 16 years ago, studying international law and diplomacy under your tutelage, Lord Strongheart. That bearded young fellow was a very able man, I must say. So Lord Strongheart was Judge Jigoku's mentor. If I'm not mistaken, he returned to Japan 10 years ago now. 10 years ago, after that fateful case. Man, I'm sick of hearing about this fucking fateful case every other paragraph. Precisely. In the aftermath of the professor case, his repatriation was organized immediately. It's a mystery why such a man would be listed in the inspector's notebook.
I didn't think it was possible, but the mood in here gets even worse now. Maybe I'll just keep talking.
Oh, whoops.
Hold it!
What do you mean, a criminal? Judge Jigoku is no criminal. That we know of.
Well, don't ask me. I don't know nothing about it.
Oh, do you remember what Father told us? That Judge Jigoku did once appear in court here in Britain. It was related to the professor case, so yes. Yes, of course, you're right. Says she was trying to mitigate Genshin's guilt. But he got a little carried away and actually managed to break the witness stand. Dude, what if fucking Jigoku turns out to have been the fucking professor all along? Because I'm starting to think it wasn't Genshin. He also said some contemptuous words about the British Empire. Ooh. He did, didn't he? It was a pitiful situation, yes. I'd forgotten all about it. But I prosecuted that trial too, as it happens. You did. It was considered to be an adjunct to the professor's proceedings, you see. But he was acquitted after being told to make reparation for the damage caused to the stand. And there you have it. Have what? Surely the accused hasn't forgotten his own rule. That there's no saving anyone who faces the Reaper in court, guilty or innocent alike. Except for, like, the several people that aren't dead. Are you suggesting that the reason Goku was targeted for assassination? The man was sent to Japan immediately after that trial. The Reaper had no time to do his work. But then, 10 years later, the mark returns to Britain once more. Perhaps now you start to see just how vindictive the Reaper is. Come on, that's absurd! To take someone's life for that? Isn't the whole premise of the Reaper absurd? Killing those who have been found innocent? Clearly the rules by which the man operates are beyond the sane person's comprehension. But...
Right, I've had just about enough of this.
Gina?
All this nonsense about the boss planning to kill people is cobblers. Come on, Odo.
Yes?
Why ain't you saying nothing? Why? Why ain't you yelling out objection or something?
What?
You've got to find a flaw. You do usually. Someone's lying here, no question. You got to work out who it is. Please. For the boss.
That outburst was an insult to the court and to your own testimony.
I might have known that a common pickpocket from the back slums couldn't make a detective. When this trial is over, you will forfeit your warrant card, Miss Lestrade. Is that clear? Ugh. Ugh. I've had it with the lot of you. It's law's every beating place you look in the world, isn't it? Well, I've had enough. So have I. After that speech of Gina's, I've made up my mind. To do what? There was one point in this cross-examination when something that was said just didn't sit right with me. One statement that seemed odd. Oh, do you mean... I'm not going to let Gina's plea for help fall on deaf ears. We still go... Well... We're still gonna press on this one again. I want to thank you, Gina. You helped me find my resolve. What do you mean? Amongst everything we've heard during this cross-examination, there's one thing that defies explanation. One inconsistency. What? An inconsistency? Really, Odo? I don't quite know what it means yet, but... Yes. You've lost me. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember the previous statements well enough, so I'm just gonna guess someone, so that hopefully I can reread the previous statements. Who seems like a nice broad option? Somebody who said a lot, which means either Gina, Van Zieks, or I guess Kazuma. Well, let's see. I'm going to guess, because I mean, you know, process of elimination, there's only really 3 people that can be, to be fair. I'm going to guess Kazuma.
Take that!
I'm a genius. By you, Kazuma Asogi, I'm a genius. It was a prediction. Guess it, you see, when we make a read, that's not called a guess, that's called a prediction, because it makes you sound smarter. Me? Is this some attempt at filibustering, counsel? Prosecutor Asogi has given no testimony. That doesn't technically matter. What are you suggesting I said that was inconsistent? You let something slip that you shouldn't have. When I present the relevant piece of evidence, I imagine you'll realize what you've done. Very well, counsel, go ahead. What evidence reveals this alleged inconsistency? I don't remember what he said precisely. Well, it's about Gregson's travel, right? What else? Well, okay, if it's about Gregson traveling, because that's what we've been talking about. Gregson's stuff. I mean, there's a lot going on with this chest, isn't there? We did examine all that, right? Why? Oh, it's not saying I did anymore. Yeah. Oh, but I did change cases. It probably just doesn't keep track of the mark through, but I'm going to re-examine all of it just in case. Oh, you know what we didn't try? Is there something obvious about the edge if it's opened as well? Oh, how the oh, Jesus Christ, dude. It's still there. How did I miss this? Do you see that? There's something stuck in the side of the trunk. How the fuck did I miss that? It looks like a fragment of metal of some sort. But it's wedged in so tightly I can't remove it. Well, don't cut yourself. You better leave it. I'm going to be honest, I still don't remember what Kazuma said clearly enough, but there's so much evidence in this truck, it feels like a trunk something has to be correct.
Take that!
Amazing. This is what I get for being a stupid bitch, but at least I can figure it out by taking the broadest possible guess. This is a trunk that belonged to Inspector Gregson. A metal construction, is it? It's very hardy. Heavy. What's this? A blood stain? And a relatively fresh one, too.
What? You mean that ain't grease from all the boss's fish and chips?
I feel like you've never actually seen what grease looks like. Fresh blood on the inspector's trunk. That suggests that the victim was traveling with that luggage when he was killed. Oh, of course. That can't be. There was no mention of any trunk in Scotland Yard's report. In hindsight, I see how I should have gotten here now. Yes, that's a reason for that. Immediately after the inspector's body was discovered, one of the street peddlers made off with the trunk, because, you know, none of them were free of sin, obviously. Hoping to sell it.
But I found it, me with me nose for trouble.
Which means that nobody should have known anything about the trunk. Unless, of course, we're talking about somebody who was present when the victim was killed. And yet, during the cross-examination of the witness just now, you said this. Oh, thank God he's going to remind me. Because at the time, he was making his way to the steamship docked on the northern coast of France. As shown by the passport. Oh, he said metal trunk, but they didn't know. Ah, I was never going to notice that. So the question is, how did you know about the inspector's trunk? We know the man went on a trip to France. Where else would he have put his passport? But you said metal.
Objection!
But you knew it was a metal trunk. Answer me honestly, Kazuma. On the 31st of October, where exactly were you? At the port of Dunkirk, on board the SS Gross. Is that the answer you're looking for, Ryunosuke? I guess he has to have been, doesn't he? This is not looking good. Kazuma? What did you... I hadn't considered the possibility before, but... if Kazuma was there on the ship, then it can have only been for one purpose. No fucking way. Oh no, Mr. Naruhodo. Surely you don't think... Come on, Ryunosuke, you know the rules. The one thing that really talks is hard evidence. Show me the tip of your sword. As I understand it, Inspector Gregson always took that case with him when he traveled. So as it stands, you've proved nothing. Kazuma, are you challenging me to prove it beyond all reasonable doubt? That you were there that day in the same place as the inspector?
He was there with Gregson.
There's a clue you've overlooked, a secret that trunk can tell us. I can't be sure at this point, I'll need to verify it. But I have a nasty feeling I'm going to be right. The accusation being made is deeply disturbing, but nevertheless, we must test it. The defense will identify for the court where in the trunk this clue is to be found. There goes Discord. Open that bad boy up. There it is.
Got it!
There's a small piece of metal lodged in the wall of the trunk here, like the tip of a blade. My one fear right now is that he's going to show them the tip of the blade that isn't broken, and nobody's going to ask about the other blade. This seems ridiculous to think would happen, but these people are tremendously stupid sometimes. Kazuma, slung around your waist as ever today, is the esteemed blade Kuruma. Please do not forget he has 2 swords. Won't you draw it here in this courtroom for all to see? Exercise caution, my learned friend. That man is the son of London's most notorious killer. Bailiff, watch Prosecutor Isogi like a hawk. That won't be necessary. He actually used the katana to do it as well. Oh no. The tip is broken. If the fragment of metal from the trunk fits together with the end of the sword, the question of who was there with the inspector will be answered. Agreed, Kazuma Isogi? Expertly done, Ryunosuke. That's a point to you, and well deserved. Do you mean to tell the court, Prosecutor Isogi? Yes, on the 31st of October, I accompanied Inspector Gregson to Dunkirk in order to carry out a mission. So the additional person authorized to travel was me. And the mission was the assassination of the Mark. What? You're just gonna admit it? You mean you're the killer whose name was omitted? You were following the Reaper's orders to dispatch Judge Jigoku? Let me make one thing perfectly clear. I have killed no one. Explain. I accepted the assassination mission, yes, and I accompanied Gregson to Dunkirk. But I never had any intention of carrying out the plan. You were never going to do it? We can believe Kazuma, I'm sure. After all, Judge Jigoku arrived safely in London the following day. But why did he attack Gregson, then? On the 31st, I boarded a train from London with Inspector Gregson. We traveled to Dover, from where we crossed the Channel to Dunkirk. Then we boarded the SS Groose and made for the cabin deck, as indicated in the plan. You went to Judge Jigoku's cabin? Exactly. He wasn't there, though. We decided to wait, but you've already told us you had no intention of going through with it. I didn't come to Great Britain to take anyone's life. So I left Gregson and disembarked the ship. I spent that night at a boarding house in town and returned to England the following morning. A boarding house in Dunkirk? My signature will be in the register book. It would be simple enough to verify. Then, what became of Jigoku? Gregson was no assassin, so the mark was spared. I'm sure it's easy enough to imagine what happened after that. But why is your sword there? Gregson returned to England as well, having failed to complete the mission. He met with the Reaper in that room on Frenso Street to report the failure, causing the infuriated mastermind to pull the trigger and end his wretched agent's life.
But why is the tip of your sword in his trunk? That's the real truth behind Inspector Gregson's murder.
Objection!
But if you did nothing, as you claim, how did the tip of your sword come to be lodged in the inspector's trunk? I don't need to answer that. Yes, you do. The victim was killed by a gunshot. A small fragment of a Japanese blade isn't related to the case. But what did you do? And accordingly, I choose to exercise my right to silence on that matter. You clearly attacked him. You can't do that. Be that as it may, the court will sequester the sword as evidence. As you wish, my lord. You clearly attacked the victim. It shouldn't matter if he died by a gunshot. You fucking attacked him. Surely that's reason enough to investigate that further. Anyway, let's look at the sword. Anything else? Okay, draw it, please. Kuruma, the Great Blade. It's such a thing of beauty, I want to gaze on it for hours. Nothing else is obviously wrong with it. The tip of the great sword, broken. It's such a shame. It's been so meticulously cared for over the years. I can almost hear Kuruma's sobs. I'm a fucking nerd. Kuruma must have really taken a swing for that to happen. There's nothing else that looks weird about it. I was really hoping, but no, it doesn't look like it. We must take immediate action now to verify whether Jigoku remains unharmed. What? Remains unharmed? I agree. That should be our first priority. It's recently come to my attention that he hasn't been seen since yesterday. How did you... When a foreign dignitary invited to Great Britain goes missing for 24 hours, it's only natural that the question of his safety should arise. You don't mean to say that you think Judge Jigoku may have been killed? The Reaper has more than one assassin at his disposal, and he has the power and influence to give orders from the inside of a prison cell. Isn't that right, Lord Van Zeeks? If I were truly the Reaper, I'd be able to tell you. Order! Order in the court, order. We will take an emergency recess for 30 minutes. Now, guests of the symposium have been told to maintain regular contact with the organizer's office. If the man can't be located within half an hour, we will have to assume the worst. Oh no. No one would want to kill a harmless Japanese man who'd only just arrived in the country. Except, that is, for the Reaper, waiting to finish off a mark that slipped through the net 10 years ago. I would have to agree. Mr. Naruhodo, for the defense's sake, my lord, I sincerely hope we are successful. If we are unable to confirm Jigoku's healthy existence in the next 30 minutes, you will face grave difficulties. Ah. Court is adjourned for 30 minutes. They are not going to find him in 30 minutes, unless he's just dead in the hotel room. Kazuma-sama, the Reaper's assassin. I feel as though I'm in a nightmare. I can hardly believe it either. But on the other hand, Kazuma isn't in the habit of making up stories. I have such a terrible sense of foreboding. If something awful has happened to Judge Jigoku, then I feel as though things will only spiral further and further out of control. I felt it from the moment I stepped into the courthouse this morning. That strange sensation that we were careering towards a foregone conclusion. Well, in the worst case, we might only have 30 minutes left. Unfortunately, though, I don't think there's anything we can do now but wait. We're out of options. Actually, there may be one last hand we can play. Or rather, one last ear. Of course, the little Mr. Sholmes doll Iris gave us. Truly, this is our darkest hour. Perhaps now is the time. What should I do? Do we truly have no other options? I don't think so. I don't think it's time. This is one of Iris's invention. There's no telling what will happen. For all I know, it could cause a huge explosion. Compared to the trial ending immediately after the recess, I'm not sure you should be thinking like that. But I suppose you're right. Fine. Good luck. I feel like this isn't our last resort yet, but... no looking back. Heave! Ow. That scream sounded like Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Here, my dear fellow, here. It's the felt doll talking. Pull the ears again. How have you done this? We are operating using telegrams right now. As hard as you can. Alright then, I'll pull all my strength into it. Heave. Ow! What the fuck? What? We've got a little robot on the other end? Please, my dear fellows, you don't need to pull my ear off. Mr. Sholmes, where are you? Myself and my trusty partner are presently in the first class cabin area of the SS Groose. The SS Groose? She left Dover last night after the final pieces of cargo were loaded. We are currently docked at Dunkirk, but due to be underway again in half an hour. You've taken a ship to France? Please, even with my athletic prowess, I would struggle to jump the Straits of Dover. After we left Baker Street last night, we hurried by cab to the station and by train to the port, in order to board this vessel in time. So you mean you've already worked it out? That the steamship was where everything took place? Mr. Naruhodo, pray, what is my name? Herlock Sholmes, world-famous great detective. Recite it to perfection. Well done. You're a genius, Sholmes. That's the only word for it. Ow, 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 ow. Mr. Sato, gently with this genius's ear, please. Oh my, I'm ever so sorry. If I may, Sholmes. Ah, there you are, Mikotoba. You may remember that it was, in fact, I who made the connection to the SS Groose. At Scotland Yard yesterday, when we examined that notebook, I recalled my steamship ticket. But of course it was, my dear fellow. And not once did I controvert the fact I merely had our court-band companions utter my name. Yes, you did, didn't you? We've just entered a recess. The trial is resumes in 30 minutes. And if we're unable to present any new leads, I'm afraid to say, are we going to conduct an investigation from outside of the scene now? Do not fret, please. It is for precisely that purpose that my partner and I have made this journey. I have no doubt we shall have welcome news for you within the half hour. Thank you, Mr. Sholmes. That would be wonderful. Until later, then. Yes, you'll be hearing from us if you're not in touch first. Ow, 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 ow. I shan't be hearing anything if you keep tugging my ear in that mindless fashion. Whatever was the idea behind making a receiver operated in that way in the first place, Sholmes? Why the deuce would I know? It's Iris's invention, not mine. What a fucking day. Whilst I know how much you enjoy being... That's why he didn't come on screen. We're about to control him, aren't we? Whilst I do know how much you enjoy being the hero of the hour, Sholmes, we have but half that now, before the Groose puts us to sea again. If we don't conclude our investigations rapidly, we shall find ourselves in Naples before long. There are times, Mikotoba, when you make a surprising amount of sense. So let us begin. You look like you're doing well. Yes, this is the one. But I don't believe an investigation of the cabin is going to be plain sailing. That crewman is standing in front of the door and an angry-looking fellow.
Why are you loitering here? Who are you?
My dear fellow, do you not recognize a world-famous great detective when you see one? The question really ought to be, who are you?
Do you not recognize world-traveling great sailor Tichkin Stroganov when you see?
Great detective?
Ha! I don't think so.
Do you see that, Mikotoba? I'm covering it up a little bit, but it's there. It would appear that this man is a devoted follower of mine. Goodness me, is that a tattoo? That says Sholmes. I must say, while such adoration is flattering, naturally, it does leave me a little cold.
What are you talking about? Leave now.
How distressing. My loyal devotee knows me only by name and not by appearance. And yet, I already know a great deal about you, sir. You have a brother, I believe. Like yourself, he's a shipman. Currently traveling the world aboard a Russian steamship, in fact.
How could you know that?
Elementary, my dear Mikotoba. I'm sure it was. 3 days ago, I was bound for London aboard this ship, you see. We're looking for one of my fellow passengers, a man by the name of Jigoku.
There is no one with this name on board.
But we know that he purchased a ticket for passage.
Ah, you mean Eastern man. He left ship 2 hours ago. Here at Dunkirk. He said something about emergency, I think.
What? Are you sure? Or are you lying? So Seishiro's realized we're after him, has he? His cabin is the one behind you. We should like to investigate, please.
No, I have orders not to let even mouse inside.
Mikotoba, be a good man and draw the sailor's attention away, would you? Make some excuse that he leaves the area.
Doesn't great detectives see that even sailors have ears, both left and right?
Curses! The plan is ruined. A dismal failure. And you've only yourself to blame, I'm afraid, Sholmes.
Forget it. Cabin door is locked. Even if I am not here, you cannot get inside.
Mikotoba, I'm sure you haven't forgotten my special talent, have you? Opening any lock. But if this is anything like the Buria, you won't be able to do that without slamming on the emergency stop. Within a mere 5 seconds. So if you'd be so kind as to afford me the requisite time, old friend, in your typical accommodating manner. How could I refuse such a typically unappealing request, old friend? So I need to distract that burly sailor for 5 seconds, do I? Good man! So, the game is afoot. Well, what have we got around to work with? What's this? Ah, the switch for the electrical lights. Perhaps if I were to turn off the lights, the crewmen wouldn't be able to see what we were doing. Genius. Flick that bad boy.
Ah, what is happening? Where is light?
Now, Sholmes, now!
Where did you find a pot? Ooh.
Nobody there.
That was a close shave. Quite a knack you have, stumbling so violently in an apparently empty corridor. Do be quiet, Sholmes. I shall have to think of another approach. Alright, grab this cheese. This must be a mousetrap, I think. Perhaps I could distract the crewman's attention with this. Try it. Chew, chew.
That sounds like big mouse in trouble.
Chew, chew.
I will bring bucket of water later and put out of misery.
I don't like the sound of that. I thought we might just, like, move it between there and the light switch, but Migatoba had a truly innovative plan I had never even considered. In any case, my dear fellow, that was quite unconvincing. That was quite unconvincing. Only Japanese mice make a chew sound. Oh really, Sholmes? And pray tell, what do Russian mice make? PP, naturally, though also quite unconvincing, I readily admit. So go ahead, Migatoba, do a PP this time. No, thank you. I'm sure I can come up with an alternative. Alright, it's time for the nuclear option. That would appear to be an alarm bell. The whole crew would know about it.
Fucking slam that boy.
Here goes, then. Pardon me in advance.
You! What are you doing? If we were at sea, that would be very bad problem.
What's going on down there? Seaman Stroganov, report at once.
Sorry, sir. Nothing to report. It was just stupid trick. No, not by me. By World Fair. No, as I told you. Sholmes, now.
Done. It's a different kind of lock. Not even 5 seconds, eh? Well, don't stand there gawping at my brilliance. In we go. Oh, yes. I must say, for a palette-swapped hallway, I'm quite surprised this had a different lock. This room is, in a bit of a state, isn't it? Wow, that's been stuffed at... Yo, there's a lot going on in here. Good gracious. It would appear that the occupants of this cabin did indeed disembark rather hurriedly. Those clothes on the floor there, they're Seishiro's without question. But what the fuck was he doing? Well, it seems we are just a little too late. Yes, by about 2 hours. Still, whilst we're here, we should investigate thoroughly. There may still be 2 hours worth of clues to find. But that burly crewman may return at any moment. Indeed he may. Which makes this all the more thrilling. He's into exhibitionism, I see. Why am I clicking on converse? Okay, let's start at the top. There's a speaking tube here, look, though it's been stoppered with some cloth. So the voices of the crewmen on the bridge aren't an annoyance, I suppose. Or indeed, so that the voices in this cabin aren't heard elsewhere. Could something have happened in here that was for no one else's ears? Either that, or it could be to prevent snakes from entering. Yes, of course, of course. That's really become a favorite case of yours, hasn't it? Quite the exquisite glass, I must say. See here how it... Is something wrong, Sholmes? You suddenly trailed off. Ice, Migatoba, ice. What opulence the first-class passengers enjoy. Pardon? Is he in the trunk? Could it be that ice surely would have melted after 2 hours? Or at least more than that. Could it be all this steamship is equipped with is an electrical refrigerated cold room, do you think? Oh, that's what we're going with? Okay. Well, it's a luxury liner after all. I mean, you know, they had to chill it somehow, so sure, but I thought we might go with the recency of the ice. They have enormous refrigerators storing all sorts of lavish produce as well as ice. On our voyage from Japan, we enjoyed culinary delights from all over the world. Suddenly, Migatoba. The sight of you is making my mouth water.
I haven't taken on the flavor of the food I ate, you know. This is a waste paper basket. Look, there's still some rubbish inside. Indeed? Then let us pray. I've discovered recently I have a penchant for exploring the contents of others' waste paper baskets. I sincerely hope only for your work. Ah. Here we have a notice issued to passengers from 3 days ago. 3 days ago, the night before we arrived in London then, when I was still aboard myself. Following the departure from the port of Dunkirk, all crew members are required to assemble... Yes, there was an evacuation drill, I remember now. For our safety and security, all first-class passengers were constantly under the watchful eye of the crew. So it was a welcome relief to have some privacy for once. Please let me read that a little more thoroughly now. I can't. Okay. Can't look at the court record right now. That's a very sizable trunk indeed. Seishiro is partial to all things large. Don't say it like that. And a rather clumsy fellow, if he failed to notice he'd left that behind. Perhaps he left it on purpose. It's lighter than you might think, but still a hindrance to a speedy escape. Fuck. Pity. It's locked, so we can't look inside. Surely 5 seconds from now the situation will be quite different, though. Sadly not. It's a 7-digit combination lock. And I'm not in a morose enough mood to work through all the combinations at present. Is it written over here on the wall? These are the rules of passage. Passengers must not keep weapons or other dangerous objects in their cabins. Pets are strictly forbidden. Additionally, there are severe punishments for stowing away in wardrobes and/or travel cases. Nice to see we had an impact. I feel the rules have increased since I last read them. Probably just my imagination. What about the fact they're not straight on the wall? Does that strike you? You may be right. Probably just your imagination, though. As you know, what I always say, Mikotoba, there is nothing important about trifles. It's probably just my imagination, but I think that might be slightly off. The wall is a slightly different color just here, do you see? Indeed, what you have observed arises when a frame that has been hanging for some time is removed. Perhaps your friend is an art thief. Sorry, I'm allergic to stupidity. Now, there's a bold deduction worthy of a great detective, I'm sure. He may very well be the elusive thief that has been plaguing France's galleries of late. I think perhaps we should focus our attentions elsewhere, Sholmes. That outline on the wall. I feel as though I might have spotted something of a similar shape. Yes, please move it. Oh, hello.
You still are here.
Ah, Abel Seaman Stroganov. Hello again. I was beginning to think you'd never materialize.
Eh? You are waiting for me.
Of course. I was expecting you to burst in with a hearty Russian profanity far sooner.
I was in trouble with Captain because of trick you played before.
Go outside and flip the switch again, quick. Poor innocent Tichikin.
This is all your fault. Ship is leaving port soon. Get off now.
Of course, we shall disembark presently, my dear fellow. But first, there is something that must be done.
What are you talking about?
Why, naturally. The debunking of your deceit and bearing of the truth.
Kakoi.
Kakoi? Kakoi? Kakei? Whatever. I'm afraid I see through your lies. For one thing, Mr. Jigoku has not yet left this vessel at all.
Ah.
And for another, my dear Seaman Stroganov, you know exactly where the man is, even as we speak, don't you?
How? How can you?
Good gracious, Sholmes, you mean you've worked it out? It's been really too long, hasn't it, old friend? 10 years, no less. So, would you care to join me for a dance of my imitable logic and reasoning? Nothing would please me more.
What is this?
We have but minutes until the vessel is put to sea. No games now. Time is of the essence. Mr. Stroganov, allow me to remind you of your earlier claim. You told us Jigoku left the ship some 2 hours ago.
Da, that is what I said.
Sadly, that was a rather clumsy lie. You see, there is something in this room that quite clearly contradicts it.
What?
Ah, yes, of course. I see you've noticed it too, Mikotoba. Then please do take the lead. This is a nice twist. What in this cabin shows the impossibility of Jigoku having disembarked? Let's see, what's the last 3 years have done to your observational skills then, Mikotoba? It's been 10 years since we did this, Sholmes, not 3. Why, of course it has, quite. Now all the clues are here in this cabin for your eyes to see. But as I always say, you must not merely look, but observe. Observe, and the answer becomes clear. So impress me. I think I can manage that. It's the ice.
Take that!
What talent! Perhaps you should have cleared away that glass. How curious that the ice shouldn't have melted despite it being abandoned 2 hours ago. Ah! It would appear that the man was here in this very cabin until moments before our arrival. With this well-chilled glass in hand. Can your mind get off the refreshment, Sholmes? One might even conclude that somebody informed him of our boarding. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Stroganov? But why would Seishiro run away from us? Before we consider that question, allow me to confirm one small matter. Would I be correct in saying that these first-class cabins of the SS Gruz are the same ones in which you and Mr. Jigoku were accommodated on your voyage from Japan? Ah, that's right, they are. I was in the cabin next door, and Seishiro was, yes, 50 days in this very cabin during our voyage. As I suspected. For you see, there are traces in this cabin of a dark secret that Mr. Jigoku had to hide. What traces?
I know nothing about this.
Ah, this is news to you, is it, Stroganov? Sholmes, exactly what are you getting at? As I said, there are traces in this cabin of some nefarious activity. Something that appears out of place, which I'm quite sure won't have escaped your notice. Something out of place. That's the key to this, Mikotoba. The remnants of the dark deed took place in here are being masked. I must say I didn't foresee ever doing this dance of deduction with you again, Mikotoba. No, quite, but life is full of unexpected twists and turns, as we well know. Now then, let's see if I can't uncover the truth. Yes, you have the floor, my dear fellow. The remnants of the dark deed are being masked by something quite incongruous. So, both of these two things kind of sound like to me, but I'm going to do... Wait, do I pick the blank spot first? Like, both of these things are evidence of a nefarious deed, so I'm not sure which one it wants first. I'm gonna go with the more glaring issue. Nope, they want... Okay, I was afraid he'd want the fucking rolled up piece of cloth. The thing is that, like, he literally asked me a question that has two possible answers from my perspective. Both of them are evidence of something being covered up. Or of some nefarious deed.
Take that!
Really? Not that either? You want the rules of passage, then? Like, rather than the mark on the wall, did you want the picture? Look, I'm blaming the wording on the question of this.
Take that!
It's the rules of passage in this frame here. The mark on the wall should work for this. It's the rules of the passage in this frame here. They're obviously out of place. The way they're hanging crooked on the wall, as if they were put there in a hurry. Yes, as I'm sure you've already concluded. That frame was originally from over here. The shape and size are a perfect match.
Duh, you are right. When did frame move?
Hardly the most observant of crewmen, are you, Mr. Stroganov? I would think your captain is quite justified in having his reservations about your reliability.
Grr.
Oh dear, that really seemed to touch a nerve. So, Mikotoba, why don't you lift that frame off the wall? That looks like a bullet hole.
What? Who has been shooting walls?
I see, the projectile has been removed. Clearly, the careful occupant of this room has already disposed of it. Now then, Mr. Stroganov.
Ag.
I have the distinct impression that you're attempting to shield said occupant.
I don't know what you are talking about. Why would I help protect Eastern Stranger?
Ah, so we're talking about the same man, I see. Good.
Ugh.
I'm sure we can get to the bottom of this in no time, aren't you? Because there's some very noteworthy evidence that explains the reason why you're lying for the man. Yes, you've been told to keep up this pretense, as clearly shown by... I really don't, I do, it's the fucking thing we just found. First principles in mind, study your subject from every angle. And I'm quite sure you'll see it. In fact, I'd put a wager on it. So I'm to glare at the fellow from all sides. Well, I can certainly do that. Oh, it's on him? Okay, I thought it would be the, Ooh, look at that. Ooh, look at that money. Ooh, ho, ho. Big money. It's almost too obvious for words. Quite the universal language of the world. Money. Ah. And I'd wager that the Eastern fellow in question is Seishiro Jigoku, yes?
Gah.
So, I presume you realize what this means. There are clear signs that a crime has been committed in this cabin. And the way you're going, sir, you'll find yourself accused of being an accomplice.
But...
I believe you know, Mr. Stroganov. You know where Jigoku is hiding at this precise moment in time. As always, Mikotoba, in my matters of deduction, the furtive glance is your unfaltering ally. Yes, I think you're onto something here, Sholmes. You found the chink in this burly fellow's armor. We need only follow the man's gaze to know where our prey is hiding. I don't even need to follow his gaze, he's in the trunk. The slightest flicker of the pupils, a minutely delayed blink. Nothing escapes my attention, even that which is barely perceptible. You could hardly call this barely perceptible, Sholmes. The man's turned his entire head. It's not exactly what you'd describe as a furtive glance, is it? It's almost too obvious. We shall let your tapping toes decide, my dear fellow. He really do be looking right at it, don't he?
Take that!
You turned immediately to look at this large trunk, didn't you?
Ah.
The truth is, Seishiro Jigoku was unable to escape from the ship in time. And is, at this very moment, doing his best to stifle his breath inside this trunk. If he still has a breath to take, I fear he may be running dangerously low on air. I imagine he didn't count on us making a nuisance of ourselves for quite so long. I think it would be in everyone's best interest for us to open the trunk as quickly as possible. But how can we? Are you forgetting about the combination lock? We don't know the 7-digit code. The combination lock can't be opened from inside the trunk. Therefore, it's... Oh, I thought the M on the Sholmes looked weird. It's the combination, it's not his name. Therefore, there must be an arrangement for somebody to open it after our departure. Of course. In short, before Jigoku hid himself inside that trunk, he must have told somebody the 7-digit number for the lock. As I'm sure you can confirm, Mr. Stroganoff. Gulp. No. Yeah, I thought this M looked fucked up. Of course. He didn't write Sholmes' name upside down from his perspective, did he? Don't move a muscle, my good seaman. Huh. Now, Mikotoba, would you do the honors and open the trunk? How on earth do you expect me? It's a 7-digit number, remember? Quickly now, we have little time. Wait, you gotta let me look at it more. Okay, so it's 5, 6, 3. Oh, does it even go all the way up to 9? 1, 0, 4, 5.
Take that!
Click. That did it? It's open. You had to meddle, didn't you? An impressive fit. Well, Eugen, you found me now. Seishiro, you look like a fucking idiot. I was really hoping beyond hope not to find you in here, you know. But you're not entirely unsurprised, I take it. No, quite. I just wish it were some other way. Well, are you ever going to introduce me? Your reputation precedes you, Sholmes. I've read stories of your many exploits. Excuse my manners, Sholmes. This is Mr. Jigoku, my old friend and traveling companion. The devil is in the details, Mikotoba. I believe you meant to say your old friend and traveling companion. Who made the cowardly decision to flee the country without a word to anyone when things turned sour. Ah. How strange. I see my reputation precedes me as well. What an honor. Well, Seishiro, are you going to explain all this? You know it all by now, I imagine. What you didn't know, of course, is that 3 days ago, on the night before our arrival in Britain, an attempt was made on my life in this very ship. By the Reaper of the Bailey? Yes, I've since heard. Because you were once prosecuted by the Reaper, weren't you? 10 years ago now, mind you. And I had no idea at the time what a dangerous individual he was. Anyway, when we arrived in London to find the symposium was postponed until goodness knows when, it became all too apparent to me that I might very well be targeted again. So you decided to flee the capital without saying a word to me. I'm afraid so, yes. Of course, I realize now that I really ought to have confided in you. It's somewhat surprising, I must say. What is? Well, first-class cabins aboard luxury steamships are in very short supply. It's more than a little hard to believe that this one just happened to be available. So says the protagonist of some colorful short stories. Well, I don't care for your opinion. The cabin did just happen to be available, so I purchased a ticket, and here I am. I've just seen for myself the obvious remnants of that incident in this cabin. So you've already purchased your return ticket before we even docked in Dover, had you? To prevent anyone else from taking this cabin and seeing the evidence. Is that it? Eugen, I have nothing to say to you. Well, in a mere 5 minutes, this ship will set off on its onward voyage and will not make port again until Italy. I'm afraid we must insist that you disembark with us at once. You have no jurisdiction over my movements. We have this, Seishiro. Take it. What is it? It's a subpoena from the Old Bailey. You're a man of the law. You know what the ramifications of ignoring a document like this from the British courts would be. You came prepared then, Eugen. Come on, let's go. One moment. What is it, Sholmes? Inside Mr. Jigoku's trunk. I found this rather fascinating trinket. What is that, Seishiro? I can't help you, I'm afraid. Some small component from something. But what, I have no idea. Let me look at the gum. I can't while I'm here. By the look on his face, I think he genuinely doesn't know. I think there was a doodad on the bottom of the gun. Well, let us pocket it as a small souvenir of our brief sojourn in France. Well, young Naruhodo, I think we've done as much as we can, I'm afraid. The rest will be on the shoulders of you and your assistant. Now I can look. Yes, it does. If I examine it, will it be revealed? You see these little things all over the place, don't you? It's the part on the top of a pocket watch that you twist. Oh. Well, I'm fucking stupid then, I guess. It's called the crown, I believe. A watch that would be useless without one. The crown, like what sits on top of a monarch's head, that's a very grand name for such a tiny part. But actually, yes, Mr. Naruhodo, if this is a crown, I have a feeling I might have seen the monarch around with his very bare head. I'm quite sure you have. Was it really missing the top and we just didn't see it? Oh my god, it is. Yo, how did I miss that as well as the fucking knife in the trunk? Kazuma, I know you, and I know you wouldn't lie, but still there's no doubt that you're holding something back. You know more than you're saying. During the past 30 minutes while this court was adjourned, all possible efforts were expended. But sadly, Mr. Jigoku's whereabouts could not be ascertained. We must accept the unfortunate conclusion that the Reaper has already done the deed. There's no sense in wasting any more of the court's time. The prosecution calls for an immediate verdict. No, the trial cannot end now. You're a Japanese man, Ryunosuke. You should know when to lay down your sword. On your sword, Jesus Christ. And you should know never to presume when the battle is won. The court has already been presented with all the evidence and heard all relevant testimony. And there can be only one conclusion, that the accused is guilty. All relevant testimony? Far from it. I call to the stand this tiny rabbit. There's still a crucial witness from whom the court is yet to hear a single word of testimony. In that case, call your witness to the stand at once, counsel. Yes, my lord. If possible. Tomorrow, if possible. The witness is already on his way and scheduled to arrive tomorrow. Who on earth is this crucial witness? Seishiro Jigoku. The very man allegedly murdered by the Reaper. Judge Jigoku? You found him? But the investigation of every policing resource in the capital suggests that Jigoku is already dead. How, in the name of God, did you find the man? He was located in France during the recess at the port of Dunkirk. Thanks to one of Herlock Sholmes's famous deductions.
Herlock Sholmes.
Inspector Gregson almost certainly met with Jigoku on the night of his death, because along with Prosecutor Isogi, Gregson was on a mission to assassinate the man. Which means that Seishiro Jigoku is the sole witness who can clarify exactly what happened upon the SS Gruz on the 31st of October.
Well,
It would appear that it's too soon to move to adjudication at this point. The prosecution concurs. The court must hear Mr. Jigoku's testimony. No judgment should be passed until all testimony has been considered. In that case, I hereby call the end of today's proceedings. Court will reconvene at the same hour tomorrow. No objections from either side? No, my lord. No objections, my lord. We live to fight another day by the skin of our teeth. Yeah, we on the way.